Hello, everybody. This is Howard, the Teaserking, coming to you with a Week 1 analysis of what I saw, what I liked and didn't like, and what you should be aware of. Um, what we thought would happen, um, like in the Nebraska game, we thought Nebraska would score more, and we thought South Alabama was really weak. And what did we get out of that game was Nebraska, where did their offense go? Three of their touchdowns were not offensive. There was a punt return, a pick six, and I think a fumble recovery. And you're like going, wait a minute, or block punt, whatever it was. It wasn't, so they only scored 14 points on South Alabama. That's a problem. The kid threw no touchdowns. So you got to watch Scott Frost. Are they really, they're not UCF yet, right? We're expecting them to be UCF, but they're really not there yet. They may never get there, or they might. They got a quarterback who you think they can get there with. They still have defensive problems, obviously. If South Alabama puts 21 on them, and they threw the ball, and South Alabama's terrible. This is the closest game they'll probably play all year, and they're in a terrible conference. So you learn, wait a minute, Nebraska's not there yet. They were overspread, and you take advantage of that going forward. They should have been sky high to put up a 60 on them. That's surprising. Clemson did it. Alabama did it. Texas did it. Iowa did it. These are the teams that you are expecting to put it up, and when Nebraska doesn't, it just tells you Nebraska's not there yet. One of the things I noticed was Army. They were missing their running backs graduated. I wouldn't think it would be that big of a deal for that type of team, but they only scored 14 against Rice, which is a really problem. Although it looks like their defense is still strong. Navy, on the other hand, played a Division II team, but they scored 56. I'm going to keep an eye on Navy this year. Are they back to where they were a few years ago when I bet them a lot? So now it's Army and Navy. What's really, is Army slipping and Navy good? With Army's senior quarterback, I would have thought Army was going to come and have a big year. So that's what happened there. Utah State looked just like I thought they would. The quarterback threw 3 picks, and they still scored 35 points. And tell me, that quarterback's unbelievable, Jordan Love. He just flicks the ball, touchdown. I mean, that's a good guy. They're a live dog. That's what we're looking for. Teams like Utah State playing a team like Wake Forest getting points. That was why the pick was out there. I thought Army would just dominate Rice because Rice has no they're a terrible defensive team. They had a new quarterback. They didn't score, but Army forgot to score. So I don't know what was going on with Army there, that it was so hard to score on Rice. That's a concern coming up with Michigan this week. Boise, we learned their quarterback's pretty good. Again, Florida State doesn't have a defense, so we'll see when Boise plays Fresno State, San Diego State, the teams with the good defenses. Let's see how they, if the guy puts up 30 on them. So you always got to remember, it's like poker. Every hand is individual. So how I give Boise credit for going on the road in Florida State and winning versus beating nobody at home. Those are the games you got to kind of ignore. Are the teams where they play the Division II teams, Maryland, Penn State, 79-0 at home against Division II teams. That's where you kind of just ignore it. Okay, the games you pay attention to is Tennessee losing at home to Georgia State. Forget the spread of 25. The spread is just for betting. The fact that they couldn't stop Ellington shows me how weak the defense of Tennessee is. And the score was, 38-33 or something. So, again, be careful with that. Tennessee appears to have no defense. So when they play Alabama, they'll be scoring 70 points. Other team like Kentucky put up 38 on Toledo. Now, Toledo doesn't have a great defense, but it shows Kentucky is opening it up a little bit more. Ohio State, Florida Atlantic. It's about right, 45-21. I think Ohio State is an over team. Michigan, I don't know. They gave up 21 to Middle Tennessee State with a new quarterback. I don't know. They looked okay, but again, their defense gave up a lot of points. So you got to keep an eye. Now, you got to realize week 1 team versus week 5 team are totally different. So Tennessee week 1 losing might be very good in week 5, or they might just be terrible the whole year. So you still got to watch and learn what's going on. Wisconsin 49-0 South Florida. So, I think South Florida is getting weaker and weaker with Charlie Strong. I don't think he's a good coach, and I think South Florida was much better with Quentin Flowers and their coach. Colorado put up 52 on Colorado State. Lakshmi's back at wide receiver. As long as he's back, this is a very good team. He got injured last year and they slipped because then they didn't have anybody else. So Colorado, I think, is a live dog this week as a home dog to Nebraska. So I could go through every game. Miami's quarterback looked terrible, but they ran on Florida, and Florida's defense, which I thought was really good, probably isn't that good. Anyway, I had a pretty good week. I lost with Army, and I lost with Nebraska, and I hit the Utah State one, so that was pretty good. And then I hit the Alabama, the Texas, the Iowa, the Fresno State under, the Virginia Tech over. Virginia Tech, BC, that was a beautiful game. I discovered, looking at both quarterbacks back, both offenses good and both defenses stink, and both coaches are pretty offensive. So when I saw the over-under at 57, I go down to 51, I said, that's 28-24. They'll get there no problem. And 35-28, it was 63. That's really where I'm looking for the overs or the unders, are games in the 50s. When you find a good offense, like a Purdue, Nevada was a 59. I didn't play that because I didn't know how good Nevada's quarterback was. But when you got two offensive teams and you're only in the 50s, then it's 30-28, it's 58. And in college, they get there all day. One thing to note with your Tulanes, your Georgia Southern, your Army, your Navy, your Air Force, these teams that run the ball like that are pretty good under teams. Army's a very good under team because it's 10-minute drives. It's 12 plays. They're running and eating the clock, which means there's less scoring because they don't, unless there's all these turnovers, it's going to be, let's watch Army move down the field. Maybe they even kick a field goal. And then the other team, has it, but Army's got a really good defense. So had I known Rice had a better defense than I thought, then the play would have been under. I thought Army would score in the 40s. They had their quarterback back. I didn't think, running back's not a hard position. So I didn't think that would be an issue. Auburn looked good with their new guy against Oregon. See, that's more of a meaningful game. Auburn's playing a real team in Oregon. So again, it looks like Oregon doesn't have a defense, and they have a good quarterback, so they're, again, an over team. Nothing's changed there. Auburn has a really good defense, so to hold Oregon to 21 was good, and then to get the win, I thought that was good. You didn't really learn much from LSU except for their quarterback, which they had last year, maybe a little bit, but you can't, again, 55-3 against Georgia Southern. Their defense looked good, LSU's, and Burrow, but you can't read too much into that. Again, it's Georgia Southern's defense, not an Auburn or a Georgia or Alabama defense, and then you got to watch that. Mississippi State didn't have the defense that they had last year. So you're you're using last year's stats, and that's all you had to base it on, going, well, this team's got a really bad defense last year. And they come in and they make adjustments, or the players, they get injured players back. Players have an extra year of learning the system. And then that's what you got to step into. Like Nebraska, I thought would be more advanced than they are. They're still weak defensively, but you got to understand that. So they're probably a pretty good over bet against over teams, but they're not. They're not there yet. Maybe they're there in week 5, but right now they should have killed South Alabama, because South Alabama is a terrible team. So that's a little disappointing. Their offense didn't score anything. You got to question, is all the offensive linemen gone? The running backs don't know, and the offensive linemen don't know how to block. I mean, you're like, the kid Martinez is good, but yet where was he? He threw 1 interception, no touchdowns, and the offense scored, I think, 14 points against South Alabama. That's cause for concern there. So try to understand it. Try to look at it for what it is. Iowa looks good. Georgia, okay, 30-6 at Vandy's, pretty good score. You're on the road in the SEC. Vandy's an SEC team. Texas looks good. Fresno, no, I was a little worried about them. Quarterback looks fine. Their defense still looks strong. SC got they had a kickoff return and another long kickoff in the game for some of their points. So you got to be, so really they didn't score 31 on them defensively. The defense didn't allow 31 when they, running back a kickoff. You're a little concerned with that, but otherwise Fresno State looks, solid again. The quarterback looked fine. I guess Washington State's quarterback looked fine. Okay, now Wyoming, Missouri. Now that could be our bitch this year, Wyoming. Although they just ran the ball down Missouri's throat, and I guess they got turnovers. It's not like they had a quarterback and he threw for 5 touchdowns. So Missouri must have turned it over. But when Wyoming beats the Missouri, gives Wyoming a lot of confidence. That's a team you want to play a lot, and they're normally an under team, and they're just running and playing defense is the coach's style. So be careful with them. They're probably a pretty live dog, and we'll see about over under. Oklahoma, Houston, I told you it would go over, and it did at the end. Syracuse to shut out Liberty, considering these other scores, I thought was great, because Liberty's got a good offense. Syracuse is an A team this year. They're very strong offensively and defensively. They gave Clemson fits last year, and look for Syracuse to be a live dog. They can score. They got that spread offense, a new quarterback, but they obviously are playing better defense. So keep your eye on them as a dog. South Carolina lost their quarterback. Is North Carolina that strong? The kid comes out and pulls the game out. Wait and see. Florida State looks like it's an over team now. They're running the Baylor offense. The kid from Baylor, Bryles, is running it, so they're going to score. They still can't play defense. Boise's freshmen look good. Duke's quarterback, who knows, against Alabama. Oak State and Oregon State. I like that Oregon State put up 36. They're supposed to have a very explosive team this year. Still terrible defense. They're moving into the over stage. That over-under was 73. They put up 88. I had it marked as an over. I didn't play it because I wanted to see what was going on first. So you got to be careful what you read versus reality. I read my guide, and South Alabama's terrible, and then they go ahead and play Nebraska pretty tight. So you got to, that's where you're getting week 1 from, as I'm betting against them because they gave up 40 points a game last year. And I don't know what happened. Was Nebraska really, they lost their offense? Or does South Alabama have the steel curtain now? We just don't know about it. So you keep an eye on the box scores. South Alabama you put in the back corner and watch them for 2-3 weeks and then go. Most of these games when they played high school teams are meaningless. Ignore Maryland and Penn State. However, Georgia State you look at and go, good offense. I don't care. At Tennessee, they still scored 38. I would definitely say that that's a very strong team that'll now be a very live dog, and it looks like a good over team. They can score definitely. So that's what you take out of it. You're really watching the new quarterbacks, Boise State, Fresno State, Ohio State. How did they do? Who was good and who was lousy? So the key is, you know who was bad and good last year. And all you're trying to do is fill the role of who's bad and good this year. Now you know Alabama and Georgia still will be good, and Clemson. It's the bad teams that got better, and it's the average teams that got worse. And that's what you're trying to find. Like I said, Colorado with Lashmi playing is a better team. Fresno's still okay. USC lost their quarterback, but watching the game, the backup was coached by Kurt Warner in high school. So maybe he should have been the starter anyway. And so you just look, maybe, is Louisville still terrible? Maybe Syracuse got better. Kentucky, maybe they're more offense. So who's getting worse? And that's really what you're trying to find. You're trying to find the bad teams. Usually by points allowed is the best way. If they give up 40, they're either a terrible team or they're an over team. So if they got a quarterback and they can score, but they give up 40, you bet them over anytime they play a good offensive team. But if they only score 10 points a game and give up 40, you just bet against them, but you're going to be laying 30, 35. So anyway, that was week 1. I had a good week, except for the Army and Nebraska games. But, again, I was, my basis was betting against Rice with a good Army team and betting against South Alabama with a good Nebraska team who I thought would score a lot. So both teams, Nebraska gave up more than I was anticipating, and then Army just didn't score, which I was surprised. New running backs like that. So anyway, so that was week 1. Again, the only time it matters is like Minnesota barely beating South Dakota State. Navy putting up a big number on a Division II I like, because Navy's been bad. I sense they're going to be good this year. So that's really what you're looking for. Kind of ignoring the Maryland Penn States against the Division II, but noticing when the upset, when the Georgia State happens, that's a team you want to ride as long as Dan Ellington, the quarterback, stays healthy. So anyway, I was happy with my week except for my Army-Nebraska. But we hit the Utah State, so I felt good on the video. We lost Army, but at least we pulled in with Utah State. And my Fresno State under, solid. Just play them under every week. It's unbelievable. All right, everybody. Well, that's the Teaserking Week 1 analysis. So again, you're watching the first few weeks, the new guys, the new quarterbacks, the teams that were bad or got better, teams that are average, lost a lot of players, and now are bad. That's what you're looking for. I'll have week 2's pick. I saw a lock. I had one of my customers ask me something about locks, and I says, I don't look for locks, they just appear. So basically I look at a game and I go, wow, that's a great, I got a great line and everything else, that's a lock. So when I do lock, I'm not looking who can I lock, I'm going, wow, this is a great spread and I got the right team. Usually it's getting the right underdog. The question was, well, who do you lock? Who do you prefer? And the 7s down to 1s or the dogs? And I said, well, I prefer a live dog for a lock. Like Utah State, they weren't a lock, But I prefer taking Utah State against Wake Forest, getting points as a play ahead of like a Nebraska, ahead of a team laying 30. Then it's iffy. Then I would prefer a 7-1 where I go, all they got to do is win, and they're going to win. So I see that this week. I got a live dog I'm going to lock, and I see a live favorite who's very small and should be much, much larger that I want to put in. But then there's the over-unders. Again, it's hard to play or lock the 80-point over-under or the 75-point over-under. But if you can find that 50 and go over or under with that, like Fresno State was 52, 53. I went under 59. You never had a problem there. And the same thing with the Virginia Tech over 57 to 51. So now it's just score, and they're good quarterbacks and good offenses, and and that's what happens. So I really love those more. I mean, Oklahoma Houston did cover, but it it's a lot of laying the 80. And it's just a very high. It's it's more risk. Let's say if you can find it really good in the 50s, that's what you really want to attack. All right, everybody. This is Howard, the Teaser King. www.teaserking.com. Our week 1 analysis. Please text or email, or just email with any questions or comments. And good luck, and I'll have week 1 in the pros coming right out. Thank you very much.